Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Boehm and this is my pitch presentation for my student innovation project, Bugged. So this project encompasses the technical fields of game writing and game design. The more I've learned about my own ADHD, the more I realize the average person doesn't really know what it's like living with this disorder. One of my main goals when I started attending UAT was to learn how to design a game to more effectively tell a story. And now it's time for me to tell the story of not only myself, but thousands and even millions of other people just like me. ADHD is something that affects every single aspect of your life and can make just existing a struggle. It's so much more than just little boys bouncing off the walls and failing to focus on their already boring schoolwork. The full deliverable of this project is a working prototype of a few game mechanics with a story to tie them together. In this story, the player takes on the identity of three different individuals with ADHD: a college student, a mother, and a person in their late 20s, early 30s, taking on the world without the structure of school or family. A lot of the mechanics will actually resemble what some might consider bugs in other games, as often living with ADHD means you feel like you may be a bit bugged. Mechanics such as things you remember putting away out a certain place simply disappearing, or showing up in a completely different place that's simulating forgetfulness, or choosing one option but the character does the opposite, illustrating lack of control and impulsivity. The goal of this project is to help those who don't necessarily know what ADHD entails understand people with the disorder better. The mechanics are meant to feel frustrating, but ultimately rewarding when things go right. This project is innovative because it uses specially designed mechanics to truly give the player the experience of what it is to have ADHD. It uses bug-like mechanics to simulate the ADHD experience and how it may vary between people and even the same person depending on the day. It will essentially take things that in most games happen unintentionally, bugs, and turn them into intentional design elements instead, with branching paths that show how these bugs can affect the person's day-to-day life. So for my design prototype, I did make a small, very basic version of the forgetfulness mechanic, where things may disappear. So when you first start out the game, or when you first start out this, you can go and pick up something, pick up an item, and it shows up in your inventory up here. And it is on a random timer. So randomly, as you're going about and doing your tasks, it will suddenly disappear from your inventory. That sort of simulates the way that you can suddenly notice that something you just had in your hand is nowhere to be found. And while that happens to everyone, it's chronic with people with ADHD. It happens absolutely constantly. And then you can go, and then it redistributes it back to a random place, and you can go and pick it up. Okay, so the target market for this game, the primary demographic of this project, is people hoping to better understand what it's like to live with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, especially those who know someone with ADHD, in order to build a more understanding world. Because the game will cover variations of what it means to have ADHD, it will also serve as a way for those diagnosed with the disorder to feel a sense of being seen, even if they don't have the stereotypical symptoms, allowing them to feel more comfortable with their disorder. The game will be simple to play, allowing anyone with any level of gaming background to enjoy it. While many people believe it to be a childhood disorder, 5% of American adults, that's 1 in 20 people, are diagnosed with ADHD, and it's known to be severely underdiagnosed in teens and adults, meaning most people know someone with ADHD, whether they realize it or not. This provides a very large pool of people that fit into the target demographic. Prior art that inspires me is a lot of very branching path type games. There's Heavy Rain by Quantic Dream. It has a core game mechanic of quick time events, which upon failing them can alter the way the story turns out. While quick time events seem a little too stressful for my purposes, I do like the idea that some choices lead to branching paths of story, or failing to go through with tasks does as well. Heavy Rain also doesn't make every event have an effect, making it so there's branching paths, but not an unreasonable number of them, so it's a good amount for my purposes with this project. Life is Strange by Square Enix is another butterfly effect kind of game where the player's choices and actions affect the story. You can also go back and redo some actions thanks to the time traveling aspects. While I want the choices in my game to be permanent, where there's no immediate retries when something goes wrong, I like the butterfly effect themes and want to incorporate something similar into this project. Something you forget early in the day, even as simple as a notebook, can greatly impact your day later, and this will be true for this project's story as well. That Dragon Cancer is a narrative game that covers a crucial part of the human experience, grief. This particular game was a huge inspiration for me wanting to make a game that went over something mental health related. The game is, however, a little too movie-like for me and doesn't have a strong game design aspect, focusing almost entirely on a very linear single narrative. I want my project to have a strong narrative like this one, but make it much more playable with a lot more replay value by adding in different paths. Loved is a smaller game than the other ones. It is a game that inspires me because it works in feelings as much as it does ideas. It gives you a lot of the anxiety and uncertainty of being in a controlling, abusive relationship. The more you disobey, the more manipulative the narrator's words. But when you follow orders, you get praise. It's a case of small things about the game's story changing based on your choices, without the game itself changing much at all. It's still a very simple platformer game. I also enjoy its simplistic artistic style. The player doesn't need a hyper-realistic world to enjoy the game. This game has a bit too direct of narration for what my project is going for, though. Once again, my name is Elizabeth Bohm. I am a game design major, and I'm really looking forward to working on this project. Thank you.